Yo, yo, yo. Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. Salute to Real Eyes, always on point, always standing 10 toes, always in the building. Yo, yo, yo. Good afternoon, freedom marchers, freedom lovers, freedom family, and freedom fighters. Snapzilla Gorillas in the building, hitting y'all with this quick live stream. I decided that I wanted to start a series of live streams discussing basically going over talking points, common talking points from individuals that believe in the government, that believes in big daddy government, essentially, that thinks that the government should rule over people, that the government is necessary for the security of the public and public health and public this and public that, you know, all that shit, national security. I want to discuss some of these talking points so that I could basically debunk them or give my take on these talking points, right? There's a lot of them. There are a lot of sayings. There are a lot of things that people say to justify infringements, to justify tyranny, to justify government dependency, and go against sovereignty, go against freedom. They say a lot of different things, right? This is probably going to be a long running series if you guys enjoy the discussion. And that's what I want this to be, essentially. I want this to be a discussion. I want people to be able to give their take on these talking points, not just mine. Eventually, I want to be able to have people join the live stream, get on a panel, and we can have this kind of round table Socratic discussion so that we can come to an understanding. And the understanding could be, you're just a statist, and that's just how it's going to be. I'm a freedom-loving individual, and that's how I'm going to be. But we got to understand the distinctions. So what is the first episode's idiom, right? What is the first talking point that we're going to go over? That civilians don't need weapons of war, right? Now, this is a common talking point used by statists to justify the infringement of our right to keep and bear arms. Okay? Right? So that is a very, very common one. They want to convince you that there is a such thing as a weapon of war, and that being that there is a such thing as a weapon of war, that civilians should not have possessions or possession of weapons of war. And I'm going to talk about how that's completely asinine and ridiculous. Tanya D says she's driving while listening. Salute to OE Kid Stuff. Salute to y'all. Thank you guys for coming through. Please hit that like button, y'all. We got 100 people in here. Let's get some likes up. You know what I'm saying? R.I.P. to Mike Tyson. Why are we saying that? Why are we saying R.I.P. to Mike Tyson? GE, pay attention to your mama. Anyway. Civilians don't need weapons of war. First, let's go over what a weapon of war is. Well, there is no such thing as a weapon of war. Okay? There is no such thing as a weapon of war. When you say weapon of war, you're basically saying that this weapon can only be used in war. And if you're going to make that distinction, if you're going to say that, well, then does that mean any weapon you use in war is a weapon of war and thus should not be used outside of war? Right? Because when I hear weapons of war, I hear that anything that you could use at your disposal as a weapon during wartime is going to be beneficial. Right? But that doesn't mean that civilians should not have access to that. Now, number one, there is no such thing as a weapon of war, because during war, there are a lot of types of weapons used, including knives, rocks, Molotov cocktails, vehicles, right? Hammers, buildings, right? Buildings, yes, buildings. They will obliterate buildings. They will strike buildings, and the buildings will crash down onto people and kill them. And they know that this is going to happen. Buildings. Yeah, all these things are used in war as weapons against enemy combatants. So, does that mean that we should not own buildings and hammers and knives and Molotov cocktails, or the ingredients to make Molotov cocktails, rocks? Because understand, during wartime, if you talk to any combat vet, they will tell you, even not even combat vets, people that go and they go to nations and there's some type of disturbance there or something like that, and the people will use rocks and stuff, like whatever they have access to, they will use it, right? A weapon of war is not a real thing. And so when we talk about weapons of war in regards to justifying infringements, we have to understand what they're trying to do. Because this definition, this term can be used very broadly across many spectrums, right? So they'll say, oh, an AR is a weapon of war. Well, why is it a weapon? What is it about an AR that's so weapon of war? What makes it such a weapon of war? It's an AR platform, right? So they call it an armalite rifle. It's modular. You can attach things to it. Pistol grips, foregrips, not pistol grips, but foregrips, scopes, lasers. They have pistol grip, right? That's, when you hold it, it has pistol grip. It has a detachable magazine that you can release at the push of a button. It's semi-automatic. It has a telescoping stock. These features that I just mentioned to y'all are what they are calling weapons of war. If your weapon has these features, and in some cases, one or two of those features, they consider that an assault weapon, and then they'll tell you, oh, it's a weapon of war. They use that in war. Kill so many people. They kill so many people with that. It doesn't stay there, does it? Because it's not just that. Because in California, right, for example, they changed the definition of an assault weapon to include if you are able to release the magazine without using a tool, then guess what? That's an assault weapon. Well, now that people have figured out ways to create convenient tools to release the magazine without going through all the bullshit, now they want to change the definition again. They want to change it to, well, you got to open the action, you got to take the weapon apart, and then you got to release. It's bullshit. It's arbitrary. See, they use these terms to spread fear in individuals that don't know any idea what the fuck they're talking about, right? And they don't know what they're talking about. They're trying to explain to you what this shit is, right? Like one of these, the chick, Senator Johnson or whatever her name is, that said that an AR, no, she said she had a 50 caliber AR-15 or some silly shit like that, that weighed as much as a box that you would carry. No idea what the fuck she's talking about. But these are the people that want to use these terms to tell you that you shouldn't own something. Weapon of war. That's a big one. Now they're, this guy owns a weapon of war. This makes him dangerous. So if I own an AR-15, I own a weapon of war. makes me dangerous to you guys. That makes me dangerous. But an AR is one of the most commonly purchased firearms in this country. So it's like over 100 million. There are over 150 million ARs out there in the world, in the public, in the United States of America, that people own, civilians. So you mean to tell me that there are 150 million weapons of war out in the streets right now, legally owned by civilians? Well, why aren't we at war with each other yet? Are we at war? Are we engaged in war right now? Let's say I own 3 AR-15s. Well, they're all weapons of war, right? Am I engaged in war right now? Am I? No. I own these weapons, and they're not doing anything without me doing something with them, right? They aren't getting up themselves to go to war, right? My ARs aren't sprouting legs and arms and going around engaging in war. No, they're at fucking home, or they're in my car, they're secure. They're not doing anything. War has not begun because there are 150 million ARs in this fucking country. And what really burns my heart is when fellow veterans use this same talking point and they say this silly shit, when they know good and goddamn well that there is no such thing as a weapon of war. They know good. You know, Tulsi Gabbard spouted that bullshit when she was still a Democrat, and she was pushing gun control in the state of Hawaii, and was trying to push gun control across the entire nation when she was running for president. She said the same bullshit. She's a combat veteran, but she wants to convince you that ARs are weapons of war. Well, if the government gets their way, a weapon of war will include anything that fires a projectile. Anything that fires a projectile is going to be considered a weapon of war, including a bow and arrow. If you can launch a projectile with it, if you let them get their way, it doesn't just stop with an AR platform style rifle, or an AK platform style rifle, or a bolt action rifle, or a rimfire rifle, or whatever the fuck you want to have that fires a projectile. It won't stop. It won't stop at a double action revolver. You know what a double action revolver is? You don't have to cock the hammer every time you fire it. It's basically a semi-automatic. It's double action. There are 2 actions being performed at the pull of a trigger. You're pulling, you're firing the weapon, and you're also pulling the hammer back at the same time. Double action. Oh, well, it's essentially semi-automatic. Oh, we got to ban that. It's a weapon of war. All right. Now that I got that out of the way, here is the most important question in regards to weapons of war. Why shouldn't a civilian, let's say there is a such thing as a weapon of war. I see people mentioning missiles and missiles and tanks and this and that, fighter jets. Well, let me ask y'all a question. Who makes these weapons? Who makes the missiles? Who makes the fighter jets? Who makes the tanks? Who builds that shit? Y'all know? Private contractors. Private contractors build these weapons. So essentially, they build these weapons and they sell it to our government using the military. Private contractors. You know what that means? That a private contractor, a private individual, or a group of private individuals, stockholders, shareholders, they essentially own missiles, rockets, fighter jets, tanks. They possess it. They're not in the government. They are defense contractors that basically own this shit. They own it. Right? But they have government contracts. But they have possession of weapons of war. So essentially, civilians already own weapons of war. They just sell them to the government. Someone says incorrect. Tell me what's correct. Tell me what's correct. As a matter of fact, what's incorrect? Military contractors don't make these weapons. They possess them before they sell them to the government. They have to build them. They have to test them. You think the military? You think the military does? No, they don't fucking do it. They don't do it. These weapons are created. They are built and assembled by private military contractors. Yeah. So, okay, let's say there's weapons of war. If you want to include, grenades and whatever the case may be, yeah, you can include that. And by the way, I am a veteran, so I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. The most we might do in the military is reload some casings that we use in the range. We use in the range, we get all the casings, and they might reload them. They might reload them, but they're still getting the slugs from the private contractors. No. The government does not create these weapons. They hire defense contractors to do it. The defense contractors are privately held and privately owned organizations. That's exactly what they are. Anyway, so let's say there are such things as weapons of war. Why can't civilians own weapons of war? What's the problem? What's the problem with that? Why can't we own that shit? Could we not at some point be engaged in war? Could there not be an enemy nation that could invade this very country? Wouldn't it be beneficial for the people to be equipped to defend themselves against all enemies, foreign and domestic? Why can't a private militia own a couple tanks, a couple of howitzers, some surface-to-air missile launchers, surface-to-air missile launchers? Why can't we? Why not? What's the problem? Squad automatic weapons, tow missiles. What's the problem? Claymore mines. What? We shouldn't be able to possess that stuff for what reason? Why can't we do that? Back in the day, when this country was founded, private companies owned cannons, right? Privateers out there in the seas, they own cannons, right? Militias own cannons. That would have been, that would have been considered a weapon of mass destruction, a high casualty weapon. They had it. What's the problem with civilians owning weapons of war? What's the problem with it? Oh, well, that's extreme. You don't want civilians to own that shit. Oh, they're gonna go crazy. Why? Why would they go crazy? Why would it be a problem? Why would it be a problem? You got government. You got people within government with high security clearances and licenses and all that have the ability, right? They got all access to all this shit, and they're nut baskets. They're crazy. They're psychopaths. They're psychopathic. Yeah, because they're human beings. Y'all do know that, right? Y'all are human beings. I'm a human being. Military personnel are human beings. What makes them more special than you or me? What makes them more special? Jim Shark says he's a combat veteran. Salute to you. Jim Shark, salute to you. Make sure y'all are timing people out for ridiculous stuff. Make sure we're not timing out people that just disagree. But salute to my mods. We want people to be able to disagree. Not saying that you're timing people out for no reason. I'm just saying. Salute to Daniel Simpson in the building with that $5 super chat. I appreciate you. He said, what are your opinions on Charlie Kirk? Do you believe he was a man of faith? I think Charlie Kirk had faith in what he believed. I do believe he was a man of faith. He was, yeah, sure. I know he was having a crisis of faith, according to Candace Owens. The direction of his faith was changing. But that's another story. I have content about that. Y'all can go. Somebody says get a job. No, you go get it. You go get a job. Don't worry about my job. Worry about your job. Because you're in my comment section writing to me right now. And you're looking for my attention. So, that says a lot about you. At least I'm giving people pertinent information. Realize says that they're saying the same shit over and over again, disrespectful towards you, they got to go. I got you, Realize. Yep, that's spamming. Yep, you're absolutely right, Realize. I appreciate you. Can't guard J's in the building, sniping motherfuckers. AK is a military weapon he's talking about. I think he means actual military guns. What is a military gun? What is a military gun? So, and listen, something like a fully automatic weapon, when I joined the Army, they got, well, actually before that, during the Vietnam War, they had M16A1s. M16A1s are fully automatic firearms. They're fully automatic rifles. Well, they discovered that during Vietnam, a lot of soldiers were spraying and praying, and they were wasting a lot of ammunition. So they changed it to a 3-round burst, which is much more beneficial. But there are no, you can't own a rifle with a 3-round burst as a civilian anyway. You only get a single selection of fire. You only get a single fire selection. You get safe and you get single as a civilian, unless you get a tax stamp, unless you go through the process. And if you can get a 3-round burst fire rifle and a fully automatic, but you got to go through all the bullshit. You got to go through all the infringement checks, all the red tape. Daniel Simpson asks if I agree with people who say Charlie's a racist. Yes. Yes, I do. But that's not why he was killed. Sesh says bro is yapping. Then why are you here? Let me help you out. If you think I'm yappy, then I'm just going to get you out of here. Why waste your time? Anyway. Yes, a destructive device permit for an explosive. But you should not have to get a permission slip from the government to own such a thing. Yeah, I know it sounds radical. It sounds crazy. But it's not. It's not. Do you guys know what happened before Ukraine was invaded by Russia for the second time? The first time was when they annexed a portion of, they already annexed a portion of Ukraine. This last invasion, right before it happened, they knew it was going to happen. Putin had all his forces at the border, ready to go in. And what did they do? Well, the civilians, they didn't have the right to keep, well, their right to keep and bear arms were heavily infringed upon. And they were like, fuck, man. You know what would help? If the goddamn civilians had weapons to help defend against this invasion. And you know what they did? 2 weeks before they were invaded, they started giving the civilians weapons, and they tried to hurry up and train them. What was it? Didn't they inscript a number of civilian Ukrainian men into the military? Well, it would have been extremely helpful if they already had access to these weapons. It would have been extremely helpful if over decades, grown-ass men in that country was able to train and possess these weapons for whatever reason they chose. They don't need no justification. They don't need to explain to you why they want these weapons. As long as they're not hurting people with them, what's the problem? Why shouldn't civilians be able to own weapons of war? Wouldn't it be beneficial if, let's say, China decided to invade us? Let's say Russia decided to cross the Bering Strait into Alaska. And they got through all the defenses, and there's a shitload of defenses in Alaska, by the way, that there are constantly, you know, the military individuals in Alaska, you know, the suicide rates of the soldiers in Alaska. There's a lot of activity up there that y'all don't know about in Alaska. There is a lot of activity going on in Alaska that you won't hear about. They're constantly on high alert in Alaska. But let's say Russia got past the defenses in Alaska and invaded Alaska, right? Let's say, or maybe not even got past them. Maybe some people got in. Maybe some troops got in. Maybe, you know, whatever. Maybe some planes got across. Let's say that happened. Wouldn't it be a beneficial thing if there were some civilian militias, private militias, that had these so-called weapons of war, like a surface-to-air missile launcher or a number of surface-to-air missile launchers that could join in the fight? That would give Russia a little pause, wouldn't it? I know it sounds nuts, right? What? Why would a private militia have surface-to-air missile launchers? Well, why does the military have? Why do military personnel have surface-to-air missile launchers? Why do that? Aren't they just men like we are? They're just men. They're human beings, just like you. Why do they have them? So that they can use them in war if necessary. I mean, come on now. Do you think that if war happens, let's say, again, somebody tried to invade this country. Somebody tried to invade. A hostile nation tried to invade. Guess what? We're at war now. Do you think that the war is not going to affect you? Oh, I'm not a military member. I'm not going to be hurt by this war. Even though you got enemy troops. You got enemy nations firing missiles. You got ground troops storming in. You got cyber attacks. EMPs going off. Oh, I'm just a civilian. I'm not involved in this war. They just dropped the EMP above okay. I don't have access to my... Well, I'm still not involved. No, I'm going to just sit here. I'm not in a war. If there is any shred of a possibility that you could end up being a casualty of war, you should be able to possess a weapon of war. Does that make sense to y'all? What was it? Help me understand it. If you could wind up being a casualty of war, should you not be able to possess A weapon of war. Could a H. Buster ask, yeah, like a pocket knife. If you could use a pocket knife during war, why not use it? If you are close in, there's close hand-to-hand combat, you want to get the advantage, you have access to a pocket knife, yeah, absolutely. Devin Slade says no. Automatic victim. Bada boom, bada bing. You might as well go on ahead and surrender to the enemy. Hand grenade, claymore, missile launchers, an AT-4, an anti-tank rocket launcher. Yeah, whatever you can use to defend yourself and defend your family, defend your community. You form a militia, y'all train, y'all use the weapons, y'all make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. Kangar J says, yeah, well, it's 249, M249. Kangar J. Yes, but yes, I get what you're saying. Yeah, and a squad automatic weapon, why not? A 240 Bravo or an M240 as they call it now. If you can end up being a casualty of war as a civilian, then why as a civilian should you not be able to possess a weapon of war? So if we want to say that this term is a real term, it really exists, weapon of war, why should that stop anybody that is capable, that has a sound mind, that doesn't demonstrate that they will commit crimes against other individuals or violate people's rights? Why shouldn't they be able to possess that? Why not? No, people should not use weapons or own weapons used for wars. Why not? If you can be a casualty of war, why can't you use a weapon of war to defend yourself? Why can't you own one in case you want to defend yourself? Johnny Walker, somebody get that homoerotic fantasy guy out of here, asking me some weird ass questions. Listen, if y'all are in the closet, then you need to speak to someone about that and have a discussion with them, and then y'all can talk about it. You can figure out how you can come out the closet. Anyway, Anarchy says, Anarchy Television, salute to you, brother. He says, lawfully, we are supposed to be having access to anything the government has. Yes. Yes, Anarchy Television. It's laid out in the Constitution. In the Federalist Papers, they wanted the civilian population to have well-regulated militias, not meaning regulated by the government, other than to equip, man, well-regulated meant well-equipped, well-manned, well-armed, well-organized, not well-restricted, not well-controlled. Ben Dover says, I got a 1944 Tiger tank in your basement. Oh, it must be hell of a model. Yes, absolutely civilians are involved in war. Look at what's going on in Ukraine. Look at what's going on in Palestine. You get training in the military to use a weapon. Why can't I go buy a weapon in the store without some training? Well, because you are a grown-ass individual and you have the right to go buy that weapon. And you're responsible for your own training. Now, when you join the military, you're getting paid to be trained to use that weapon for a specific purpose, right? You now have a job, and that job requires you to train to use the weapons they give you. But when you go buy a weapon for yourself, you're doing it for personal reasons. So, if you want to train to use that weapon, if you have a problem, who's supposed to give you the training? You got to pay for it. You go pay for the training. If you want training to use that weapon, go pay for that shit. Have somebody train you. Find a veteran to help you. What? No, nice try, though. Nice try. Yes. Anarchy television, well-regulated meant well-maintained and well-equipped. But they won't talk about that. What evidence do you... Well, look at the Federalist Papers. Ken Garjay says military and law enforcement, you have to abide by whatever the state tells you. Yes. How do you determine someone is sound mind? How do you organize a militia? Well, you get with people that have the same ideology, that are on the same lines, and you train and you form a militia, right? You might have a group of veterans in a community or in your state or in your city. Get together with people and form a militia. Train together, organize. Is nothing wrong with it. Well, militia should not be illegal in any place. If a militia is illegal in any place, then they are committing a crime known as deprivation of rights under the color of law, which is punishable by up to a year in prison or death if it results in the injury or in the kidnapping or forced captivity of an individual. There are laws against creating laws to prohibit forming militias. Y'all do know that, right? It doesn't say the right of the militia. It says the right of the people. Yes. Your talking point has been debunked. What are you talking about, PHM? You have no idea what you're talking about. It says a well-regulated militia being necessary for a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It's saying that militias are necessary to maintain your freedom, to maintain the state of freedom. The state of freedom, you want to be in a free state, you need a militia to defend against anyone that would infringe upon that freedom. Thus, every individual's right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. What don't you understand about that? Rago says this is a goofy man. Okay. That's not what your mama said last night. Do I believe in militias having military-grade weapons? Yes, but what is a military-grade weapon? What is it? What am I making hard to understand? What's the definition of regulate? I just went over that. It means well-maintained, well-equipped, well-trained. Right? That's what it means. Well-disciplined. Right? The National Guard is, by the way, is not a militia. Just so you know. It's actually legal to own a tank. Right? But can you have the munitions to put in that tank? See, that's where it gets important. You might be able to own a tank in some places, but can you arm that tank? Can you equip that tank with armaments? That's the question. Would you enter the freedom-minded zone? National Guard is not a militia. Should militias be allowed explosives? Yes. Yes, a grenade. I don't make sense in anything I'm saying? Well, that's too bad. Your brain can't process. Essentially, that's what you're telling me. Your brain can't process what I'm saying because whatever reason, maybe you you don't understand the concept of freedom and liberty. Yes, liberty and freedom. State as in Florida, not state of happiness. Who said anything about the state of happiness? It doesn't say being necessary for a free state of the union. It just says free state. Do you know that the Constitution is deliberately ambiguous? It's a living document. Well, yeah, the tank can be a weapon of mass destruction. So can a vehicle. So can a sedan. So can a Jeep, right? Because you can probably kill a lot of people with a vehicle. And that's when we start getting into the weeds of what a weapon actually is. And that's what I was talking about earlier. A weapon of war could be anything you use as a weapon during war. Whether it's a hammer, a knife, a shoe that's attached to your foot, a steel-toe boot, right? An elbow, your bare hands. You got to do what you got to do. But you want to have the best advantage. CSS drops a $4.99 super chat. Salute to you, brother. Salute to you. I appreciate you, man. Thank you for the support. Only those with bad intentions for America fear 2A and militias, ordnance, military mortars, mobilized armament, and overlooked high-grade armor a must. I agree. Absolutely. Yes. Anything. So how do you know if people are of sound mind? Well, when they demonstrate that they never do anything that shows they're not of sound mind, right? You don't know if somebody is going to be a criminal until they commit a crime. You don't know that someone's going to harm somebody until they harm somebody, or until right before they harm somebody, or when they give all the signs. But who knows what these signs are? You can never know. You don't know that somebody is a murderer until they murder somebody for the first time. Because guess what? They're not a murderer until they murder somebody. You don't know. That's the beauty of being a free individual, a free sovereign individual. That's why it's also dangerous to be free. But see, not being free does not stop the danger. Government control and government tyranny does not prevent danger. Because those that would do harm to you don't care about man-made laws. They don't care about what the government restricts and what the government prohibits. Because if they want to get a weapon to kill as many people as possible, and there are laws against you just going to buy a gun without going through a background check, without a waiting period, or without restrictions to what you can own, they're not going to go through those avenues to get those weapons. They're going to go to the black market to get those weapons. They're going to go to the black market, the gray market, whatever market you want to say. They're going to go wherever they can get those weapons, because the black market will always provide for what the government prohibits that's in existence. If it exists and the government prohibits it, guess what? The black market will have it for you. Just like drugs, right? Just like drugs and weapons. People get caught all the time with rocket launchers and grenades, civilians, just criminals. They get caught with this shit all the time. They just don't tell you about it. I appreciate that, Brandon Sheets. You know, we need to be on the same page. When has been illegal stopped? It hasn't stopped anything. That's why people are criminals. Don't worry about my hat. Worry about what I'm talking about. I'm talking about being able to possess anything that you feel you could use in case a war comes upon you and you're a civilian. If you're a civilian, it doesn't matter if you're a civilian. If war comes here, it won't matter if you're a civilian. You think that the enemy is going to give a fuck if you're a civilian or not? Hell no. Someone says, LMAO, you liberal. Why are we trying to do the racism bullshit? Because they are conditioned. Celsius says, love you. I appreciate that. Because it's just, they're conditioned. They have been conditioned. I'm a liberal. Sure. Excuse me. Anyway, y'all. Yes. Countries with terrorist groups would target civilians. Salute you, Edie. I appreciate that. CSS says, cops are evil. Also the left. Only cops should have guns. Yeah, it's called cognitive dissonance. Yeah, it's a sad thing. Legalize body armor. That is a no-brainer. Why would you want to make body armor illegal? I want y'all to think about why they don't want you to have these things. Why they don't want you to have weapons of war. Why they don't want you to have body armor. Think about why they don't want you to have that shit. Anarchy says it's not necessarily foreign governments that the Second Amendment is for. No, it's not. No, it's for its own government. Yes, precisely. They didn't. No, the Second Amendment was not for foreign nations. Yeah, it's for our own government, to prevent our own government from committing tyranny. Right. So anyway, y'all gotta get out of here. Yes, cognitive dissonance, exactly. And they keep trying to make it illegal. It's crazy. Making body armor illegal is wild and out of control, y'all. I mean, that shit's crazy. Anyway, y'all stay up, man. I plan on doing more. If you have a talking point from any statist on the left or the right that you want me to discuss, drop it in the comment section, man. And we can continue this series. Let me know what y'all think, man. Let me know what's a common talking point for a pro-government statist. Drop it in the comment section and we're going to keep it pushing. All right? Anyway, y'all stay up. Y'all stay safe. Keep your head on the swivel. Stay frosty. Much love. Like, share, subscribe. And we're going to keep marching forward toward freedom and truth. And thank you to those who subscribe. And thank you for everyone who dropped the super chat. Peace.